Hey everybody, it's Chap here with my good friend, future amazing author, and just fabulous guy, Dr. Chris Culver, my co-host. Chris, how you doing, bud?
I'm great. I love our time together, man. So I'm looking forward to this and grateful to be back and share this space with you. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, and Chris and I always talk before we come on the podcast, and this has nothing to do with the podcast, but it's just something I want to mention. I didn't tell Chris I was going to mention, but I am going to mention it. I always love connecting with people. I think the human connection is vital for our society. And every time I talk to Chris, I walk away like just feeling better. And sometimes we're just, today we were just venting. We're not going to talk about everything we talked about. We were just venting before we even got on. We were venting to each other about stupid stuff and nothing crazy, but it was just funny. And the things we were venting about actually are going to be about this podcast. Well, not the specific things, but how to deal with certain things. Um, and it was just funny because it's those conversations that are so important. So yeah, I always love spending time with Chris. It's so much fun. So just to remind everybody, first two pod, this is episode number 3. First episode on kindness, I'll link it. Second episode on mindset, I will link that as well. This is our third episode together, and again, we're doing one a month, so which is great. I love doing it. This one's going to have really 3 different things that Chris and I talk about. So usually we'll talk about like one thing, like mindset or kindness. This one just kind of happened randomly before we hopped on today, and I think it'll be a really good topic. And depending on how far it goes, it might be 2 things, might be 3. It just depends on. We try to keep things to generally about a half hour or so. The first one probably will be a little bit long because it's something that he said that really resonated with me. So, Chris, you mentioned nice versus kind. What do you mean?
Yeah, sorry, my dogs are barking in the background of all day, right? Like they haven't barked all day, and now all of a sudden, so I'm laughing about that. It's the grace, right? It's the grace. I think there's a fine line between being kind and being nice. I think we've confused and blurred that line as a society. I like to call nice as like people pleasing, right? You are compliant kind, essentially. You are doing things that maybe aren't necessarily what you want to do, that fill you up, that bring you joy, that bring you excitement, that bring light or energy into your space, but it's because someone's asked you to do that, then you're more likely to say yes, right? People pleasing. I also think it's kind as not having boundaries. When someone asks us to do something, we'll burn it from both ends of the candlestick because we want to seek approval or validation. Or, as you mentioned in the opening of the show, we're wired to belong or to be connected with other individuals. And so we'll oftentimes say yes in order to have um, that person validate us or affirm us to feel belonging in that space. So I really think about nice as non-boundaries, people pleasing, doing things that we don't want to do, not having a backbone, not standing up for things that we believe in, right? Not saying no. And I share this vulnerably because when I mention these ideas to folks, and I say that having a boundary or saying no or doing things that light you up and fill you up are not uh, are not selfish, people are usually stopped in their tracks. And what I'm trying to help highlight is these are forms of self kindness, right? So saying no to something does not mean that you're being rude or disrespectful. It just means that you are honoring your body's internal message to say, I can't do this. I can't take on one more thing. I'm stressed to the max. And I think when we are able to communicate those things and be holistic in our approach to explain that what this means to someone, it really does change the conversation. So to me, that's the shift between nice and kind. And I think the final through line between the difference is the form of communication. What are we telling people? Are we communicating explicitly and honestly about what we're navigating, what's going on? And chat before we got on, you talked about we never know what someone's navigating before them,
Yeah.
right? And so that's that form of kindness too, assuming positive intent, asking questions. And so when we have that understanding, I think that's where we can see the through line of a difference between nice and kind.
I love that because you know what? I've never really thought about that. You kind of like, but I guess that's true. And I want to add that I don't think there's anything wrong with being nice. I mean, we should be nice, but
Absolutely.
but I also think your take on it is very interesting and something I really didn't think about. But now that I really am hearing you, I think there's some truth to that of being nice for the sake of being nice, or being nice to go out of your way for somebody. And then, of course, we have to be careful about being taken advantage of, which is very easy. And I love how you said people pleasing. I'm going to mention that very quickly. So, for 36 and a half years, I taught. Most people know this who've watched me. And I have to say that loved my job, could not have had a better job. Honestly, great job. But I was always, I don't think I think for the first 30 years, I don't think I ever said no. Honestly, would never say no. Shap, can you do this? Sure. Shap, can you do that? Sure. And now that I think about it, I mean, I don't think I was necessarily looking for validation. That's not really who I am. But I think it was just not wanting to have those boundaries that are so important. And I don't remember the exact time it was. I don't remember the day or the month or even the year, but I know I got to some point where I was so busy, where I was like, you know what? F this. I can't keep doing this. And I don't remember the first time it happened, but I remember a student had asked me about doing something after school. And normally I'd be like, yeah, sure. And I was like, you know what? Hey, listen, love to help you. Right now I'm busy. When do you need it? And they told me, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to promise you I can do it. I said, I'm going to try to do it. If there's a problem, I'll let you know. And it was so, I don't know what the word is. I guess, I don't know what the word is.
Probably healing of some sort. Or
Yeah, it just felt like a weight was lifted off me.
Yes.
Because I was like, wow, man, that felt good. And it's not like I was mean to the student. I wasn't. It was just kind of like the boundary, like, you're coming to me at the last second. Hey, Shop, can you do this for me? Like now? No, you're coming to me at the last second. And I think that when you talk about kindness, I think when you always say, like, be kind to yourself, right?
Right.
That is what that was. And the student was not offended at all. It didn't affect anything, but it felt so nice to be able to say, hey, you know what? Let me pause this right now. But I think people really struggle with it. I think people struggle with the difference. And sometimes I think people struggle with understanding, what it's like to be kind.
No, I agree with you. And I think back to conditioning about bringing, for me, myself, and I know probably other people who are listening in generations, was a lot of times be seen, not heard, right?
Yeah.
Don't have an opinion, don't have things. And I think about the power trips we get into with individuals who serve as our supervisors. So sometimes we think as delegation as a skill, and it is in a way in which we're going to grow other people, give them opportunities to flourish, giving them autonomy and empowerment. But the hard part is when you have delegated so many things and then you ask the person to do one more thing, that person, i.e. myself, I feel guilty or shame saying no, right? But in my mind, I'm with you. I'm like, F it, I can't do one more thing. And I think back to when I served as a campus leader and district leader, even in corporate America, when times in which those situations were proposed to me and I was having to navigate those. And I look back and I can confidently say I wanted to say no, but I didn't. And I think back to, like you shared, maybe not validation, not affirmation, but wanting to solve the problem, wanting to be of service to somebody else.
Yes.
But the reality was I wasn't being true and authentic to myself. So in those moments, or the work quality I was producing may have been good, right? But it wasn't the best quality work because I was just trying to be compliant. And I know that's one situation in many. I think about times in which someone may ask us to do a chore or to pick something up around the house, and it might just be the eggshell that breaks the entire situation. Like, we just can't do it. And that's what I mean, as you alluded to, being kind to our mind, having grace and compassion for ourselves. We are so quick to give it out to other people, but saying no, setting boundaries, resting, recovering, and not spinning that hamster wheel constantly are not forms of selfishness. That's not being selfish. It's not being disrespectful. It's not being rude. It's actually the best form of kindness for yourselves. And when you're kind to yourself at that level, that's where you're going to see the outward ripple of your kindness, because you're kind to yourself. You're able to give kindness out to other people, kindness to the world, and it's that ripple effect. But it really does start with that internal dialogue and that internal intentional choice of sounding boundaries for ourselves.
Yes. And there's also this issue of resentment,
Yes.
which I think, as you were saying, it's funny. As you were telling that, I was thinking about times where my wife would like ask me to do something, you know, and I would do it because sometimes I would do it because I just wanted to be nice, but other times I would do it because I didn't want to like get into a fight,
Right.
you know, like, oh, who gives a crap? I'll just do the dishes,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or whatever. So who cares? I'll vacuum the floor. And I really believe that that's toxic.
It is.
I really believe that. And I'm not saying you shouldn't compromise. And I'm not bashing my wife either. I'm just saying that I think sometimes we kind of forget about those communication keys of being honest, of having dialogue and being forthright. Many times we're not forthright with things. Like I had this conversation the other day with somebody I'm very close with, and was just saying, I said to them, you're better off just being honest instead of, and I actually said kind. I said, it is so much more kind for that person,
Mm-hmm.
for you to be honest than to not be honest and kind of beat around the bush. And they kind of were like, you know what, you're right. And I'm like, now you have to do it. And they were like, well, it's hard. I'm like, no shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard because the person that she's talking to is somebody she cares about.
Yeah.
But I said to her, I'm like, I got it. Of course it's difficult because you don't want to hurt that person's feelings. On the other hand, and this was I think I think anybody watching really get this. On the other hand, you're venting like crazy to me,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So obviously it's upsetting,
Right.
but you're venting to the wrong person.
Right.
And be clear, I'm not saying I was upset that they were venting to me.
Right.
I'm saying that instead of venting to me, be forthright and honest with the other person so they know where you stand.
Yes.
And that way you can have honest dialogue.
And I think it's so important when you share that. I had this conversation with my partner the other day. We were talking about how we communicate these things, right?
Yeah.
How do we say this? And I think oftentimes in my own experience, I remember recalling and saying a bunch of you statements like, you made me feel this way, you, right? And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We have to flip the script, because when you say, I feel this way because this, right? People can't tell you how you feel. You're communicating how you feel. Now, if they get defensive and all the other shenanigans, that's on them, not necessarily on you. But if you're coming at them with you statements and a defensive mode and derogatory and accusations of they're the reason this, then that's where it blows up, right? That's where we have that dichotomy of distress, because we are wired as humans to want to know that we can have a companion or connection or belonging, right? Think back to hunter and gatherers days. When there was conflict, we would move on to the next village and leave that there. But when we move away from the I statements and stick in you, we miss that opportunity to really communicate what we're feeling at the core, and to help other individuals understand what we're feeling, so that we can work together to bridge that misconnection, that miscommunication, that misintent. Again, those are ways in which we're moving away from nice to kind. Kind is being, like you said, honest, but also kind is being honest with the way we communicate and making sure that we're honest with ourselves of how we're feeling, and making sure we're staying rooted in those I statements. I felt ashamed or embarrassed when this happened, right? And that's just one example. It could look different for anybody else, rather than just being responsive. But it's in those moments when the chaos happens, right? I always say life is going to life. Lemons are going to be thrown at us. All these things are going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's in those intentional moments that we shift. And so that's why a lot of miscommunication, a lot of breakdowns or stress can be resolved when we think through the lens of an I statement rather than a you accusatory statement.
And that goes back again. I think, Chris, you just summed it up about the kind piece. Like if I said to you, I feel frustrated, Chris, that you did this. I'm telling you how I feel.
Right.
And now, of course, some people will belittle it. I can't believe you feel this way. And my response to that would be, you can say that, but I still feel the way that I do.
And you're worthy to feel what you feel.
Exactly.
It's okay to feel that way. Yes.
We should not belittle somebody based off their feelings. And it is being kind to yourself. And actually, I would say it's being kind to the other person when you phrase it that. Because when you say you did this, that's attacking.
Yes.
Chris, you did this to me.
Yes.
That's attacking somebody. When I say I feel frustrated that, or I feel angry, or I feel sad, or I feel happy. It doesn't have to be negative stuff. It could be good stuff. I feel grateful. I feel grateful that we get to spend this time together.
Amen.
So it can be lots of things. I want to make sure people understand it doesn't have to be negative stuff. It can be positive stuff as well.
And I want to make sure I preface this with what I'm about to say is I'm not encouraging alcoholism or drinking. So let me say that. But think about when someone or if someone were to consume alcohol, right? It might impact my body one way and your body another way. You might, right? It might send me to a low or somebody to a high or all kinds of things. We know different medicines, different things interact with our body. It's the same thing, right? Our emotions are signals. They're signposts trying to communicate something to us, but what it's trying to communicate is going to look different for every single person. What we should not do is suppress the emotion. We should name it. And if we have to articulate what that looks like you said, don't say you, that's accusatory. But if you said, I felt saddened, for example, when I drank the vodka, right? Like I can't tell you that you're wrong by that's what happened. That may not be my experience, but I hear you. And if someone belittles you, positive, negative, whatever it may be, that's not on you. That's on them for not understanding or seeking to understand or really walking in empathy, right? Walking to understand what you're trying to communicate. And I know that's hard. And I share that vulnerably because sometimes when we share our emotions or we share what we're feeling, we're shut down. We are made fun of. We're cut out of conversations. And I share that to say everything's for a season. So if that's what happens when you communicate, then maybe it's that season, right? Or if it's a positive thing, it could be something different. And I don't want it to be negative either. I want to make sure that we focus on the positives. We're able to communicate those things. But I just don't want anyone listening or watching to feel like when they express themselves and someone doesn't hear them, that's okay, because it's not. We are all worthy of our emotions, worthy of love and worthy of belonging, worthy of being here. And so it's important that we communicate those things, not to show kindness just to the other person, but really the kindness to ourselves.
And my final thought on that would be this. When we make those, so if I was making a statement that if I said, Chris, I feel really upset that you said this. And then you, let's say, were defensive. I would say, Chris, I understand, but you didn't really hear me. I said, I am blank because of blank. I think what that does is it lets people know how you truly feel about something without being without attacking them and without being honestly even argumentative.
Yes.
It's a very, I find it to be very therapeutic when you do that.
Yeah, because you're naming the emotion tied to somebody else's action, right? You're not saying that it's necessarily right, wrong, or indifferent. You're telling them how you feel based on the action that they made, right? So it is therapeutic. I think it's the release that you talked about at the beginning of this conversation. Mm-hmm. It made you feel good. It may not necessarily, when you told that student, no, you weren't able to at this moment, you could come back. I think about how many of us could relieve some stress in our life or some chaos in our lives if we were to say, hey, not right now. Right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying no forever. I'm just saying not right now because I don't have the capacity at this moment to take that on. But 24 hours, things could be different, right? We don't know. And so I think it's really important that we communicate like that, like you said at the start of this combo.
Yeah. Okay, everybody. So we're going to transition because I knew that was going to take longer than what I thought it was going to be. So two of the other topics, we'll cover this first one. And Chris, you'll have to kind of run with it because I don't remember exactly how we talked about it. We were talking about the idea of don't sweat it, don't blow the MFer down. So kind of cover that.
Yeah. So I know in a stressful situation, we know about fight or flight, right? We know that when we are in a stressful situation or perceived danger, our brain is firing out cortisol into our body, and our stress, that's the stress hormone. And we are in a heightened response or fight or flight, meaning that we are going to fight the situation, leave the situation, do something. And I was sharing with you at the start before we went live that my emotional response to those stressful situations used to be, and I can name that kerosene, that like I'm burning it down, right? Like that is my response. And that's not healthy. That is not healthy. And it took me a long time to get to the point of understanding what was happening. And I remember working at a district office, and I kind of started to understand what was happening because I was working in a lot of stressful situations with some really hard personalities in a really toxic environment. And so I was in constant state of stress, constant cortisol being pumped in my body. And I started giggling with some of the ladies that I worked with, and I was like, let's just burn it down, right? Like, here's my response, burn it down. And as I laughed about it, I realized this is your emotional response. When these things happen, this is why, right? And so I could trace it back all the way to my childhood. I could chase it back to my teenage years. And so when I was able to identify that, and that was probably in 22, 23, so not long ago, right? Just a couple of years ago, I have been working intentionally. When those moments come, what is it that I do? And one strategy that's really worked for me, just being totally vulnerable, is counting to 6. I will pause. I will count to 6. I will think of my favorite ice cream flavors. I will think of anything for those 6 seconds, and ask myself, what am I about to say? Is it helpful? Is it kind?
Right.
Or is it going to cause more chaos and fire and brimstone, right? Before I didn't care. I was like, pour kerosene on that fire. Let's blow it up. And now I'm like, that's not helpful. That's not helpful. It's not going to get anywhere. And it's like you said it in the last conversation we were having. That's that attackatory, that non-I statement. And so the fact that I can name, I feel this way, I'm going to blow this place up, here's how I can change it, has really shifted the way I talk to myself internally, but also strategies that I apply. And I don't say that for sympathy. I share that for solidarity, because someone watching, someone listening, someone who's part of this conversation with us, maybe looking for this one thing. And so for me, it is a 6-second pause. If 6 seconds are too long, there's research that supports a 3-second pause as well.
I think that's great. I really do. I think that's a great way to deal with it. Now, of course, my follow-up is going to be, you're making it sound so much easier than what it is.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it sounds like it's super simple, right? But it's the moment you get cut off at a red light. It's the moment someone swerves in your lane without seeing you. I mean, there's all these life things that happen. I think last night, we ordered a pizza, and we also ordered some breadsticks. The breadsticks came, but the pizza never came. So I was like, how did you drop off the breads? All right. So I was having that moment to calm down as I'm contacting the driver. The driver ended up taking the pizza. I didn't want to say that, which is fine. I mean, if you need it more than I do, I want to communicate that, but it goes back to communication, right? And so, yes, it sounds simple in this conversation. I'm going to count to 6. I'm going to calm down. I'm going to breathe, right? But in the heat of the moment, that is not what you're doing. That's why I'm saying, recognize what your response is. For me, in the heat of the moment, my tongue is fired up. I've cranked it into overdrive, and we're ready to go. But I've had to stop that because it doesn't work. It's detrimental to success. And it actually fuels more negativity in my body. And when we think about where we want to exert energy, it takes the same amount of energy to exert kindness or negativity. And so it's been that work in progress, that rewrite of doing it. But to your point, no, it's not easy. It's a work in progress, just like a muscle you have to try and train every single day.
I'd add that for everybody watching and listening, here is something to think about. It's not even a strategy. It's just something to ponder. So again, we're talking about don't sweating it, don't blow the MFR up, right? Here's something that might really help people. Think about when a situation happens. It could be small, it could be big, whatever it is. When you react a certain way, there's going to be a repercussion of it. Could be good, could be bad, neutral, whatever it is, but something. Give you a perfect example. A couple years ago, I'm driving in the car. My wife's in the passenger seat. Somebody cuts me off, and I'm like, "Dad." And my wife was like, "Really, Craig?" And the second she said that, I caught myself. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this person doesn't even know me. I'm like cursing at this car. And all that's happening is my adrenaline is through the roof. I'm like, for what? For what? It didn't solve it. And the second she said that, I laughed. And I was like, you're right. And my message to everybody is, are there things that we should get upset about? Of course. Anger is a human emotion.
Yes.
frustration, sadness. I'm not. We're not suggesting you never get angry.
Right.
That'd be silly. Of course, that's possible, but it comes down to thinking about what you're actually upset about, and is it worth burning that mf'er down? Right?
And sometimes it may be. No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding. I'm kidding. But
No, but you're kidding. But I'm not kidding. I would say sometimes the answer is yes. In certain situations where it's really severe and you're really upset and you feel like you've been wronged, 100%. Like I'll tell you right now, I hate disrespect.
Yeah.
That's my thing. Like, I don't care if you disagree with me on every single thing, Chris, but if you disrespect me without me deserving it,
yeah.
I got a problem. And I think that's something where you have to be able to pick what you're actually fired up about. Like, does it matter that this person cut me off? No. No, not at all. Does it matter that the person didn't say thank you if I held the door? No. That's a they issue. That's not a we issue. And if we sweat it, if we let that get to us, well, now it's just not a them issue. Now it's an us issue, which just leads to being toxic. And my final thought on that is I'm not talking about letting somebody take advantage of you. That's not what I mean. I mean that in many situations, we do not understand how to deal with the small stuff. We sweat it like no matter what. And just understanding our brains, our hormones, how they react, nothing good comes of that. Nothing. It ends up just getting us angry, frustrated, releases the wrong kinds of hormones. There's nothing good that comes of that. And maybe in a future podcast, we'll delve a little bit more into it. But I do want to cover this last one because I do think it's important because Chris and I won't be back until after Thanksgiving. So we'll be back after the Thanksgiving Day holiday in December before the other holidays. So I wanted to touch on this because I think Chris brought up something I think was really, really good. Holiday season stressors.
Yeah, holidays are stressful and they're exciting at the same time. We know some people have the white picket fence, amazing family, and we also know some people have the white picket fence, amazing family on the outside, but on the inside, it is a hot mess express. And I speak from the latter. That is my experience. We have a blended family, and so we all growing up, it was always a mix of all kinds of things. And I'll just share that there's some trauma bonding from the Thanksgiving stories. And we know when that happens, there are heightened emotions. We know there's stress that's elevated. We know there are people on pins and needles, and all of those things that can be happening because of environments or because of individuals. And I think it goes back to our beginning of the conversation of making sure that when we're in those spaces or people are smarting off or saying sarcastic comments or saying things they want to say, it goes back to that being kind to yourself, not allowing the niceness, the compliance, the people pleasing to really take over that space, but to set boundaries for yourself. Remove yourself from spaces that you don't feel like are good for your energy, right? There are a lot of times you'll catch me at Thanksgiving. I might be outside for a while by myself. I'm okay. I'm all right with that. It's allowing me to calm down and cool down. Remember that the heat of a kitchen cooking or the heat of a fire of a living room and an escalated situation only adds more fuel to yourself. So cool yourself down, calm down, get outside, stand in grass. Don't allow individuals to control your response to the situation. You are the only one that can control the response to those situations, much like you sharing your cutoff story at the and driving. I think about we can't control the events in our lives, but we can control the perceptions that do result in the outcomes. And so it's the same for when you're navigating the holidays. Have grace and compassion for yourself. Do your best. Treat people the way they want to be treated, the way you want to be treated. And if someone's disrespectful to you or not welcoming you in a way in which you find is kind, remove yourself from the situation. Do not people please. Don't succumb to the peer pressure to stay in the space. Do what's best for you. That's how we're going to navigate the holidays. Remember, boundaries and no are not selfish. They're forms of self-kindness.
Man, oh man, you rock that.
Appreciate it.
Man, oh man, I don't even know what to say. I don't really have anything to say. I don't have anything to say.
I mean, I speak from experience, right? I've had some rough holidays, and so I've had to figure out what are strategies rather than, like I said, blowing the kerosene burning it down isn't it with the family. But what are things that I can do to still stay in this space, to still be respectful, to honor family traditions and time together, but still be respectful of myself and boundaries for myself.
I love it. Everybody, so end of episode 3. Like I said, one of our goals is really to keep this like 30-minute window. We were almost spot on again. It's perfect. Keep that window in. We'd love to hear your responses. So drop a comment to Chris or myself or both of us. Tell us something you like. Tell us a topic you'd like us to cover. If you have feedback, like something we could do to make it better, we're not going to be offended by that. That's how we make it better. That's what it's all about. I mean, we're doing this every month. This is a consistent thing. So we want to make it as worthwhile and as positive for everybody. And that's by you sharing feedback with us, both good or maybe not so good. Either way is okay. Remember to subscribe to the channel. I will have Chris's contact information. I will have mine. I will also have a link to the first podcast on kindness, the second podcast on mindset, and obviously this. For those of you who are celebrating Thanksgiving, hey, have a wonderful holiday. Make sure you spend time with family if that's what fits you. Doesn't have to be, but if it fits you, please do it. Be safe. If you're traveling, please be safe. Be cautious. Okay? Don't do something foolish. Chris, you want to add anything?
I was going to say, in a season of gratitude and a season of thanks, I'm thankful for the space with you and thankful for all of the listeners and the viewers who help bring this podcast to fruition and to help us spread the message of kindness everywhere. So truly, from the bottom of my heart, I'm rooting gratitude for you and for all of the people who make this possible. So thank you.
Love it. Everybody, final statement. As always, Chris, everybody else, you are awesome.